When the fuck did I get married?
2020.
2020?
Coming up on them.
Okay. I met Logan Chapman in the 2nd grade and Kaden King in the summer before 7th grade. I always felt much more comfortable hanging out with the boys, and I'm grateful those friendships have continued into adulthood. So I can watch these guys go from stinky little boys to having families of their own. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves a little bit? I'll have Kaden go first and then Logan.
Okay, so yeah, like Chelsea said, I'm Kaden King. I moved to Utah from San Diego, and that's when we met up. She was actually one of my first friends when I moved here because she knew my cousins really well. So yeah, it was kind of later on in life, start of junior high and into high school. Luckily, we continue that friendship and beyond. And yeah, I've been married for almost 2.5 years now. Got a little girl that turned a year old in October, and Berkeley Jade, and we have a son on the way any minute now. So just kind of stand by waiting for that. So
hopefully not during this podcast.
Yeah, hopefully he stays in there for a week or so longer.
Cool. And you?
Yeah, I'm Logan. Known Chelsea since we were younger, 2nd, 3rd grade, something like that. We've always grown up together, always gone to school together, every school, and now we're old. I've been married for almost 4 years now. We have a little boy, Eli. He's 8 months old, and nothing on the way as of yet, so just the one.
Cool. What has been the most exciting thing, just right off the bat, for each of you? Because I know there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of other things, but like, let's focus on the positive at the beginning, you know?
For sure, yeah. I think it's just all the moments of watching them grow and develop personality, and it changes. I feel like it's changed me tremendously, and I would say the most exciting thing and the thing that I really take to heart is watching like the connection with my daughter and my wife. Yeah, it's just something that you can't really put into words. And as, you know, she's grown, it's changed us, and just watching her personality develop and her emotions change, and like just enjoying life, like the innocence that they have. It's so pure, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm sure you see that with your son. And especially when they get like around that year mark, so many things start changing. I mean, they're changing rapidly every day, but so many things just start to like develop, and they start to understand things. And it's really something you can't explain. You hear people say it all the time, but yeah, I think just watching her grow and just enjoy life on like the purest level where she has no worries, you know, makes me feel like, it reminds me of being young again.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just love that. It's just the joy too that she brings me and my wife and everybody, you know, my in-laws, my parents, her aunts, uncles. It's just so pure, and she's just so loving towards everything. So.
Well, and she's the first grandbaby on both sides.
Yes.
So that's spoiled central.
Spoiled rotten, yeah. But yeah, just the purity of it all. It's amazing to watch, and because you know, as you get older, all these stressors and stuff come to your life, and having a child, for me, I can't speak on everybody, but for me, it's made me like appreciate the little things. So I know that's kind of like a broad. There's so many little things, but yeah, just I would say overall, just the innocence and the happiness. It's awesome to watch.
Cool.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just how innocent they are, the simple stuff that they find amusing, you know? Like just, I think it was just yesterday, Ashley was at work, so I was with him all by myself. And, you know, a lot of times people will be like, what am I going to do with an 8-month-old for like 4 hours? You know, put him to sleep. But we were just like on the floor, and he has these little blocks, and I would stack them up, and he would like reach out to almost touch them, and then he would just bust up laughing because he knows if he touches them, they're just going to fall over. So he would just, and I'm like crying laughing because he's reaches out and then just starts laughing, and then he knocks them over. So it's just fun to like he said, like the moments there's always little things like that in every day that you don't like. They're not big things, but you just get to experience all these little moments that they're experiencing for like the first time. And then you get to look back and you're like, damn, I was that big once too. You know, I wonder what my parents were like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and like, because they obviously can't enjoy that moment now, but you're able to enjoy that moment again for yourself, like vicariously, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, that is cool that like you're just now like looking at a sucker. You're not jaded by a sucker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
things that are like not important to us. They're like shit we see every day, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this is like the coolest shit ever, you know?
Yeah. Like I just saw The Little Mermaid at like Hale Center Theater. And I had that same thought because she's like, a fork. And I'm like, but if you've never seen it before, you know what I mean? Like, kids are putting everything in their mouths.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were that once. And
Yeah.
now we're like, nah.
Yep.
Yeah. With my kid, it's a phone, man. He sees a phone and he's like, goes crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, if he's laying there, if he hasn't crawled yet, he'll like roll around the room to get around. But he'll strain every muscle in his body trying to reach a phone. You know, he's like, I gotta see what's on this thing.
Do you think they're born that way? Like, the future generations? They just know how to do stuff.
It could
don't
be.
they?
It's crazy.
I think they're just introduced to it earlier than we were. Like, cell phones weren't a thing. Tablets weren't a thing.
I remember
you know?
campaigning to get a cell phone in junior high, so
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they were not in our pockets at 6.
Yeah. But
Yeah, and the old phones are probably more fun. If we had them when we were younger, you got all the buttons, you flip it open.
I
Now it's
remember
just
playing Snake
yeah.
screen,
in between texts.
Yeah.
Because we were texting constantly. You know, like, kids were just always texting, but you're having to push a button 8 times. You know what I mean?
To get to the right letter, then you pass it. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, you don't have the internet on
Yes.
there. We had Cha-Cha. That was fun.
Yeah.
But okay, so what are some things that maybe you wish you knew sooner as a first-time dad? Even if it's one thing.
How you're gonna feel when you become a dad, because it's probably the same for him. I'll let him say it, but when your kid's born, you feel like helpless. You know, you're like, I can't do anything right now. You know, like your wife or your girlfriend, whatever, is giving birth, and you're like, I can hold your hand, you know, I can bring you drinks, food, but you're going through this. And then when they're born, like, they depend solely on the mom. So you're like, what can I do? What do I need to do? You know, you're going to feel like helpless, but you got to look for like the things you can do to.
Such as laundry, dishes.
Oh yeah. Laundry, dishes, cooking. I've done all of that. And especially right after they have the baby, like the recovery process.
That's rough.
It's rough.
I've
So
seen a
like,
birth.
so you got to be there. Like I remember helping Ashley walk to the bathroom, and then our son was in the NICU, so I'd push her in a wheelchair, and it was like, you know, 200 feet away from our room, but like she doesn't need to walk that after what she just went through. So I'd push her over there, and we'd go see him, and you just gotta like find something that you can do.
Yeah.
And don't just wait for something to be like.
Don't wait for them to ask.
Yeah. Because once they do, you're too late.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
What about you?
Man, mine's probably not as sentimental, but how to change a diaper correctly.
Yeah.
Because it was probably like the first time. Well, so my wife was in school full time, not in high school.
Nursing.
But yeah, she's in nursing school, so she's at the DATC, and yeah, it was like Berkeley was born, and later on, 3 days later, she was back at school taking a test.
I can't imagine.
But yeah, I remember it was one of the first times, like changing a diaper, and I just get shit all over me, everywhere, and it was like, yeah, and I'm watching my wife do. I'm just like, you've never done it. You're watching videos, or like you're so fat. It's taking me forever. She's getting impatient. So yeah, it was, and I was changing a lot of diapers when she was first born. Um,
Are they moving around a lot at that age?
no,
Or
and
it's just kind of like they're so fragile you don't want to move them very much?
yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time she's like sleeping, but she would like tense her legs up or kind of move around. But yeah, they're pretty like immobile at that stage.
Okay. Was it interesting having to wipe a girl versus... yeah, you're like, this is new territory, right?
Yes.
That's
In
where I
my-
think like his
Help me with
diaper
that.
thing is like me changing a boy. I was like, oh, easy rules.
You just gotta put it down.
You do whatever you want. And I got peed on. We got peed on all the time. And it's harder when they're younger because like they're not used to getting. Now
Colder
you
heads
change
in.
his diaper and he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So he'll just chill there. But when they're just barely born, they're like, what the fuck is happening right now?
yeah.
I thought I was inside a body.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, and like on more of like the serious side,
It doesn't have to be. Like, it can be the...
right? And it's well, there was a lot of little things, and
Yeah.
you get coached up. Like my dad gave me great advice. My father-in-law gave me great advice. Co-workers, friends I had with kids, and you hear just all the little things. But once you're thrown in it, I think Logan hit it right on the head. It was as like the dad, you do feel kind of like not really inferior to like your wife, or the mom.
Useless?
But yeah, it was like she's waking up throughout the night. She's not getting any sleep, and then I'm waking up with her here and there. Like sometimes I'd sleep through it, but it's just like what can I do? It's like, well, you can't really do anything. Like I'm feeding her, then I'm laying her down. There was times like where I would, if she was getting restless and crying, would go back to sleep. I'd rock her and shush her back to sleep. But yeah, my wife is just doing everything, and I'm just like, what? And then, just with the postpartum, dealing with, she's got to be gentle. Her body just went through this drastic change, and nothing's changed for me, So yeah, I think you nailed it with that one, Logan. It was definitely feeling kind of helpless and trying to do. You just feel like maybe you're not doing enough, and it's like, no, let me help, let me do this and this. And it's like, well, I have to do it.
But then you also touched on something pretty beautiful where you're like, she's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing this. Did that change your guys' view of these women that you're
Oh,
living
yeah.
lives with?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
How so?
Yes. It changed for me, like throughout the pregnancy, because like how my personality is, and seeing like there's certain things that she can't do anymore, and she's just like, oh, it's fine. And it would be a lot of selfish things for me, like, oh, I can't have a drink when I want, and obviously when you have a baby there's things that are more important.
Right.
But and it's not about, oh, well, I can't have a drink because I got this baby in me. It's just, it's all these little things that change, and it starts adding all that weight on that shelf of like your life is just changing, and seeing how,
You are a vessel for this child, this human.
yes, and with our daughter, she was sick all the time, and I don't know, like compared to this pregnancy, the first one was it was rough. So just watching her go through that, and just like, nothing, all these things are changing, but she's not like broadcasting that, she's not complaining. She's going through, and it's like, I'd be complaining, it's like, oh, he's got man flu or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're out for weeks. It's so true. I'm like, I couldn't be doing that. And then I'm taking her fishing, and it's in the middle of summer, and she's out there when it's 100 degrees, not complaining. We're walking around, and she just carried on her day-to-day life. And then seeing, like, I would have been a nervous wreck if I had to deliver a child. The roles were reversed. I'd probably be in the position, I'm like, I'm never having kids because I'm not going through that. And I'm sweating bullets, about to faint in the hospital room, and she's telling jokes, with the midwife and the nurses and laughing.
Skyly's also a unique person.
She is. Yes.
We love Skyly.
Yeah, no, she doesn't get worked up out of anything. But yeah, just I know for a fact I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And let alone keep the composure that she kept. So
Did she
and
get
it's
an epidural?
yeah, and that's where I almost passed out.
Okay, I was gonna say.
That's
Knowing you,
yeah.
blood anything.
And
too.
let me defend myself a little bit. Okay, because we had a due date, and I don't know, like she has a due date. We're expecting this. I'm supposed to go into work the next day, so we lay down. Is it okay if I go into this right
please.
now? Okay. So we lay down, and we're going to bed, and I had just dozed off, and it's 12, like midnight, maybe a little after, and she's like, I think my water just broke. So that's not part of the plan,
No.
right?
She was gonna be
Because
induced?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, and she's like, hey, well, I'm gonna get in the shower, and I'm like, the hell you are? Like, we gotta go. I'm running. I'm getting the dog in the kennel. I'm getting the bag ready, and she's just like, we're fine. So in my fear, in my mind, I'm like,
She's gonna deliver here.
yeah, and I'm
There you
gonna
go.
be passed out. This isn't gonna work. So
Anyone but Kaden.
yeah,
Deliver this child.
yeah, I'm just like, yeah, we got to get people on call. Call your mom. Start getting things ready. And we get to the hospital, and so everyone's caught off guard, right? Because it's not part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, yeah, we're fine. Our her mom, my mother-in-law's there. She's calm. She's excited, but it's like, hey, we're good. And then the anesthesiologist comes in, and he's going through the epidural procedures, and it's his job, right? But he's going into depth on what the needle does, what the medicine does, where it has to be injected. And every time he would go further and further into detail, I'm like losing vision. So I'm sitting there, and I almost am to the point where like, hey, just do it, and we'll explain to her after. Like, she's in nursing school. I think she knows how this works.
Spare
So
me.
yeah,
Spare me.
and he's like, hey, you're gonna hold her hand, and he's like explaining the spine and it was just a lot. So I walk out of the room. They're like, you okay? And I've been to this point before in my life, like in certain classes in school when they start talking about blood and all that. And I go out into the hall, and my vision's just gone. So luckily I remembered where we walked in. So I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm feeling the wall. I swear to you, I couldn't see. So, but I was conscious,
And you wanted to keep moving?
Well, in my mind, I'm like, okay, the bathroom is down just to the right.
Okay.
So I'm like, I need to get cold water. And there was a bathroom in the room, but I didn't want, like,
Be in
my
the room.
wife for them to see me.
Oh, okay.
Like, So I feel the wall, and I feel it turn. And my vision starts coming back, and I'm like, okay. Well, as I can, like, start to see, there's two nurses standing there, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I think I just blacked out. And they're like, okay. So they give me, it's like a,
Sir.
yeah, they give me this like smelling, it's not a smelling salt.
Poppers?
It was weird. It's like a little tablet they opened up, and it had, I don't know what it had in it, but it was like, it smelled like kind of minty. And so they gave me that and some apple juice. And my mother-in-law took a picture. I am laying on the floor. And luckily it's in the middle of the night, so people aren't like walking around. And they're fanning me. And my wife's in there. She's the one dealing with this. I'm supposed to be support, And yeah, and when I got up, there's just like a pool of sweat. And I'm like, do you need me to like a napkin, a wipe that? They're like, no, just take care of yourself. Come back in the room, epidural's done. He's walking out. They're good. And they're like, so for the whole duration of while she's in labor, they keep asking me, are you all right? Are you all right? And I'm like, no, are you okay? Like, I'm fine. You know what I mean? You're the one dealing with this. So yeah, just trying to like steal her spotlight, I guess.
Yeah. How are you
But-
gonna manage number 2?
Well, I think I'm a little bit more prepared now.
You're gonna just
He's
stop
been
being
there
for the
now.
Yeah.
epidural.
And for the delivery, I was fine.
Bizarre, because
But-
those are crazy.
So I didn't take a front row seat. My mother-in-law's holding her left leg. And I'm up by her head, and I'm just talking to her
Oh.
through it, like, you're going to, and she was fine, but I was just like, words of encouragement. And it's hard to, like, try to take your mind somewhere else because you know it's about to happen. But I'm just trying to, like, okay, like, I can't be passing out right here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was crazy. And it was just the epidural, him just explaining everything. I was just, yeah, this is not going to work. I can't be in here. But we got through it.
Yeah, finds himself a way out.
Yeah.
So, how has it changed your view on Ashley?
Oh, you just like appreciate them more.
Yeah.
You know, like I appreciate everything she does. And before we had a kid, we were like two individuals that were together, we're married. But then you have a kid and now you're like this team in charge of raising this little like demon,
Do you feel like
and they can be demons, they can be sweet, but you just learn that like, hey, we're on a team in this, so we got to work together. And we did that after he was born, like what we were talking about earlier. We came up with like a system of how we were gonna, in the middle of the night when she had to get up and feed him, I'd be like, okay, when he wakes up, I'll change his diaper, and then I'll give him to you, and you feed him,
that's so nice.
and then we'll put him back to sleep, so that she's not like carrying this whole load herself, and I'm just like passed out. And it was really helpful that we both had jobs where we got 12 weeks of paid leave. So once we had the baby, I wasn't worried about,
right.
Oh, I got to go back to work in 3 days,
You guys were able to hunker down.
Yeah. So we stayed home for a couple days, then we started going out to like get food, but we got to like settle in. And then I will say this, our son was in the NICU, and it was almost like a blessing in disguise, that he was there, and he was totally fine. It was just like precautionary, because after he was born, my wife had a fever that wouldn't go down. So they're like, okay, we're going to give you antibiotics. So they gave her antibiotics and they left. Then they came back like 10 minutes later, and we're just in the room with him, just us three. And they're like, hey, it's protocol if we start you on antibiotics, and we have to take him to the NICU and start him on antibiotics. And me and Ashley are both like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it really like hurt Ashley. Like she started crying. I cried a little bit, and she's like, oh no, like we're going to go home like without a baby, and we're going to have to like come back and visit him. I'm like, hey, he's going to be fine.
Right.
And he was huge. He was almost 9 pounds.
Whoa.
So when we would go visit him in the NICU, all the nurses are like, he's like the biggest baby we've ever seen here.
He was in there for different reasons.
Yeah.
More protocol reasons.
And it was sad because you'd go in there, then you have to check in, then you have to scrub in, you have to put on gowns and stuff. And then you walk past all these babies that are born at like 20 weeks, and they're just tiny and they're barely holding on. And I told Ashley, I'm like, just be lucky we're not like there. Like these babies have been in here for 2 months trying to get the strength to get out.
Hers is just in there till she gets better.
Yeah. And it was protocol for, I think he had to finish 3 rounds of antibiotics, and they gave it to him every 12 hours or something. So he was born the 19th, and we took him home the 22nd.
It's not bad.
So, and we left the hospital the 21st.
Okay.
With Ashley. But it was nice because he was born, and then they took him there, and then when they took him to the NICU, I went and saw him that night, and then I came back and I passed out.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you
on the
guys had
couch.
some time to kind of recover.
Yeah. So we had 3 days before it was full time. Like they did feeding schedules every 3 hours. We'd go over, feed him, put him back in the thing, go back, sleep, So it was nice that we got like a little break. I mean, obviously I don't wish that ever happen, but it was.
And if he's going to be in anyone's care, it's the hospital.
Yes.
So that's nice.
Yeah, it was stressful for sure, but looking back on it, I'm like, I'm glad I had 3 more days where I could gear up a little bit more to know what to expect. Because if it was like, hey, he's born, he's yours, and I'm like, you're letting us take him home?
Yeah, you're like, diapers, what?
Yeah, well, that was I'm like leaving the hospital, and I was like leading the way, and I had her in her,
Wheelchair?
in the, well, so Skylar was in a wheelchair. So I don't know if a doctor was pushing her out, because she had like numbness in her leg. I think she was in a wheelchair. Might be butchering that, but I had the baby just like in the carrier. What do you call those
Car
things?
seat?
Car seat.
What do you call those?
I'm like, yeah, car seat, right? And I'm walking out, they're like, oh, she's so beautiful. I'm like, hey, well, like, I'm taking her, we're leaving. Like, someone gonna stop me? Or
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're good. Like, go.
No one wanted to check the paperwork
Yeah.
first.
And I'm like, I got this baby, I'm leaving. They're like, hey, yeah, enjoy it. Like, congrats.
Congrats, Dad. You're
Yeah.
like, what
And
the
I'm
fuck?
like, okay.
So when did like the fear set in?
For us, it was right after he was born when they took him. We were like, oh shit, because you have
What did
like
you
you have like this big plan, and different from his story where theirs was like out of the blue, her water broke. We were Ashley was scheduled to be induced. She's like, get this thing out of me,
Mhm.
and she was going to be induced on the 19th, and then it was like 2 days. It was the 17th, like late at night. We're laying in bed. She's like, he's moving so much. Like, he's never moved this much. I'm like, okay, well, like, what do you feel? And as a husband, you never want to like pressure
Right.
them. You don't want to be like, all right, let's go. We're going to the hospital right now. You want them to like make the decision. It's their thing. They've been doing it all along. But we stayed up for like 3 hours, and she's like, he has not stopped moving. And I'm like, all right, let's call the midwife and ask her. And I talked to her, and she's like, well, it seems like normal. It seems like he's fine. But if you want to go in, you can. And I'm like, I don't want him to like be moving so much, and then, the umbilical cord gets wrapped
Right.
around him and all this stuff. And like 2 days before he's supposed to be born. So we talked. I'm like, all right, let's just go in. So we went in, and it was after midnight. So it was the day before now that she's supposed to go in. And they monitored her and everything for a couple hours. They're like, everything seems fine. We'll see you tomorrow, Then we went in, she got induced and everything, but it was crazy how it all went down. And then once you finally get them home, we brought them home from the NICU, and her family was there waiting for us, balloons and everything. And everybody's over there seeing him. Then my family comes over. We brought him home at like 10, and I think everybody left at like 4:30. So we had, and we're just,
Afternoon.
and we're dead.
Yeah.
Like, we're exhausted. And everybody leaves, and we like look at each other. We're like, holy shit. We need to like take a nap.
Yeah, no more people for a couple days.
And then, but you can't like take a nap, because he's hungry now, Then you put him, and luckily when they're newborns, they sleep a lot more. But you still like, everything you would have done before you had a kid, you have to do differently
yeah.
now. So it hits hard.
Life changed.
Yeah.
You're not just pregnant anymore. There's a third one.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, it set in a little bit at the hospital, because then there's all these things they have to do, right? So it's like they might draw some blood, they might, if you choose to do vaccinations, whatever. But they do like the hearing test, like a heart test. So like they come in, grab her, do something, and then they would do things in front of us, like shots, gave her like a bath, just kind of clean her up. And obviously she's uncomfortable when they're doing this. So just seeing her like cry, and I don't know what's going on in their mind, but obviously they're processing something. So like, I don't like what's going on. And
Right. Scary.
yeah, so just seeing her like kind of cry and be upset, it was making like me upset. So I didn't like all, and I understand they have to do it, right? It's like not mandatory, some of the things they do, but if you opt into like, yeah, we want to do vaccines, we want to do this and this.
The intention is for their health care.
Yes,
Right.
yes, and that's
Right.
what you got to understand. And I didn't know like the full spectrum of like what goes on right when the baby's born. So it set in a little bit there because I for the first time I was feeling that, like almost guilt, like, oh, I can't help her, like she's uncomfortable right now, but they have to do this. And then yeah, once we got home, first night she's crying. My wife's exhausted. I'm trying to let her go to sleep, but she wants to make sure that Berkeley's okay.
Or like,
And
just leave the boob out and go to sleep.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like,
I'll handle
yeah,
it,
I'm
you
like,
know?
she just ate, she's crying, I'll get her to sleep. And yeah, it was just putting her down, because any little noise she'd make, like, my personality, a little bit of like hypochondriac.
Little bit?
Yeah, maybe a lot. But I'm just like, any little noise, I couldn't sleep, and I'm constantly check, like, is she breathing? Is she gonna roll over? Did we swaddle her right? And yeah, it's just like, man, we have to care for this baby,
It's up to us
and
to keep
it's
it alive.
us. Yeah, and you can read whatever book you want or watch any video. There's no real preparation.
The kids don't read the books
No.
or watch the
Yeah.
Every
videos.
kid's different.
Yeah.
Every family's different. Every parent's different. How
Yeah.
can it be buy a book?
Yeah, and so yeah, that's when it set in for me. It was just like, and then it's good to look things up, so you're prepared. But it's like,
Where's this going?
yeah, they tell you like,
WebMD.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Don't
You
go.
start diagnosing everything. That's what
Why
I say,
won't my
like,
baby stop crying?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah,
Don't go down that rabbit hole.
yeah, don't. Right, and I do that when I'm sick. I have a headache, and then I'm like, oh well, I got brain cancer, and I got,
It's
so.
a quick.
Got a CT scan scheduled.
Yeah, you turn into a physician all of a sudden. And yeah, as I'm looking up things like, okay, what do I need to look up for? And then you look up things like SIDS, or
Just to scare yourself?
no, it was more of like, okay, how can I be best prepared? Like, I don't want to, have something happen, God forbid, but like knowing I could have prevented it.
You almost look something up so you can rule that out.
Yes.
Like, what are the symptoms of this? And you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But he has like 3 of the 4, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right. And
You're like, I gotta keep my eye on him
Okay,
at all
and
times.
When do we go to the doctor?
Yeah.
Like, pediatricians are probably like
Yeah.
so good at defusing
Oh, they are. They're great.
parents because I would be calling every day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And things changed. Like, I don't know how true this is, but like, listen to my mom talk. Back in the day, supposedly, they would tell like, oh yeah, your baby can lay on their stomach, and now it's like, no,
No. Yeah.
like that's a no-go. Or I mean, they had, their cribs had lead-based paint and stuff they
Yeah.
chew on, and so things have changed so much. So that was the thing for me, is like, I want to create the safest environment. So as you're going down that path of, you're doing your research, you're talking to people, you're seeing what doctors say online, there's just a little tab to the side, and it says like, oh, SIDS, and then you're like, well, I want to be able to prevent something like that.
Yeah.
And then it puts fear in you. So yeah, that was the biggest thing, is this is us. And then, being how I just kind of feel being the man is like, I'm the protector. If something goes awry or something goes bad, like, I need to be the one that's, and my wife's probably more capable than I am of handling the situation, to be honest. But, that's just kind of how I felt, was I need to protect not only my wife, but now this baby. I need to make sure that we're prepared. And yeah, just if there's any curveballs, I know how to handle it. So it was more of like a preparation for me, so that, first nothing happens, but if it did happen, like, was it something that I could have prevented?
Or
'Cause-
that you're at least your best resource in that moment.
Yes, yeah,
Don't
like
need to
I'm
Google
acting right there on
now.
the spot. Yes.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to like resolve the situation without adding to the chaos if something happens,
Right.
you know, because your wife's probably going to be freaking out. So you can't freak out, because then you're just compounding this panic. So you have to prepare to be like, okay, what do we do? And
Yeah.
Has like your gut instinct changed at all around
Yes.
things? Yeah.
oh yeah, we had
For
Looks like you
sure.
just changed. Whether you have the kid or not, like you even said, maybe your wife's a little more capable. I don't know if it's more capable. I just think everyone levels up. And I think that that's like some monkey brain type of shit.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you just watched your wife go through this or your partner for 9 months, and now there's a human being here for you to take care of. So your brain's like, protect, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Take care. And then her brain's saying the same thing, just in a different way. You see those videos of dads like catching kids
Oh,
when
yeah.
they shouldn't have been able to catch
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
moms lifting cars.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think having a kid, whether that's biological or not, it will do something. I think biologically it obviously has a large impact, but I think you could probably get that with adoption too, honestly, if you put yourself in that parent mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you're in that mentality that, okay, it's me and my wife now,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever, we're in charge of making sure this thing lives.
What you're in this together.
Yeah. And we're in this together. So you like go through this mental change of, what do I need to change? What do I need to look out for? What do I need to do every day to like be proactive, to protect them? But you also don't want to like overprotect them
Yeah.
to where they're just in a bubble all the time. And
So would you guys say that you've taken a lot of things from your own childhood and been like, okay, this is how I'd like to do this on my own, and kind of adapted through that? Or are you kind of just going with the flow with what your child's giving you and your partners, your wives?
I think it's a little bit of both. I know the biggest thing for me, because like obviously I don't know how things were operating when I was like my daughter's age, right? But just like kind of reiterating the point that we've been making with like the instinct thing. I remember growing up, if like shit went sideways, you know, in our life, or there was like a scary moment, my dad was the one that like diffused the situation or
Okay.
calmed us down. And so, and I mean, it was on numerous occasions. So I think that's something, you know, that like I realized with, and I knew this like growing up, like if we got, and it could be just something, you know, weird, but like if I was sick, you know, my mom's the one to like comfort me or whatever, but then my dad was, you know, the one that would like really step in and be like, okay, you're okay, or you know, and even like when you get older, when certain things just aren't working out, you know, my dad was definitely like the security blanket. And so I think that's something that I realized. So then stepping into being a dad myself, it's kind of like, okay, I need to be that. And like I said, it wasn't, I feel like it kind of kicked in like as an instinct first of just like kind of being on guard and like, okay, I'm a protector, whatever you want to call it. But then when I was thinking about it, just thinking of growing up, I'm like, yeah, if things ever got bad, like I was going to my dad. And it's not a knock on my mom, right? Because
No.
she was definitely like the nurturing one, and like, you know, when you're sad or whatever, she'd make me feel better. But when I was like really scared or like down and out, you know, coming up or in my life, younger, older, anytime, my dad would always be the one to like level it out, make me feel better. And there was no one else that could give me comfort but my dad. So I think, you know, having a kid, that is something that I was like trying to emulate and be like, okay. And like I would see my mom get sad too, and my dad diffuse the situation. And I feel like he was the only one that could calm her down. So yeah, that's definitely something that was like a big part of my childhood that I have picked up right now.
Cool.
yeah, it's almost like a combination of both. You think back of what it was like when you were a kid, as far as you can remember,
Right.
because before I don't remember things from when I was like 5 and before, you know. But you also have to take things as they come, and how are you gonna adjust to this situation? I mean, our kids are young;
Right.
they're not getting into trouble yet. But
we are going to talk about that. So,
when it comes down to it, it's like you think back to, how did I get to be 16, or how did I get to be 12 and have this personality and this relationship and these friends? And you want to be like, okay, like at what point does that start? When do you have to like, when do they get molded into this person? Or how do I not make them not screw them up.
Just
I don't want to
amplify who
screw them
they
up
are.
when they're 2, and then when they're 7, they're still feeling the effects of that. Like, you want them to be who they are and encourage that, but not take that away from them.
Yeah. Just encourage them to be more of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
tough. I honestly, I like that I'm doing this because I know nothing about this subject, right? Like, I'm kind of a know-it-all. I feel like I have my opinions about these things. I am obviously around kids quite a bit, but I've never been a parent. And so it's so interesting to watch, like, my childhood friends come into this stage of their lives, and, like, I'm a little bit more on the edge where, like, I'm terrified.
Right.
And, like, have some other reasons why I don't want to, but I can still appreciate the beauty and the, like, this is what makes people happy. And, like, kids are so great.
Right.
Mhm.
I used to be so afraid of kids, I think, because of my hand. And now that I've gone past that and I'm with
Right.
them more, like, it's what you guys have been talking about. It's that curiosity. It's that, like, just pure intention. It's the love that they're able to give. I don't know how kids are able to give that much love. That amazes me.
Yeah.
And, like, even just being, like, an aunt or a friend that comes by from time to time, I have those thoughts of, like, one, I'm not a disciplinary, right? So I don't have to worry about any of that. But I want kids to feel like they're just safe around me always. And if they ever needed to come for me for anything, they could. And I'm that safe place and open book. You guys must have thought, I know your kids aren't very old, but you guys have probably thought about when they do get older.
Mhm.
What are some of those fears based on just, like, your lived experience? You guys have both been in college. Have friends like me who've been through lots of different things, especially like being a girl dad and a boy dad. How does that, like, your lived experience change that and how you think you'll want to handle that? It's a big question.
I've definitely done a lot of things my parents don't know. They'll never know. Like, we
Right.
got into a lot of
Same,
trouble,
same.
all this stuff. And I don't want to take those experiences away from my kids. Like, I'm sure they're going to do stuff that they don't want me to know about and I don't want to know about. Like, my main 3, I want them to be safe and healthy and happy. That, as long as they're those 3 things, do your thing. My dad used to always tell me, like, in high school, hey, I'm going out with my friends, and he'd say, don't get caught doing anything stupid. I'm like, okay. And we never got caught. We did a lot of stupid shit,
Yeah.
but we never got caught. But I just want my kids to be happy, doing the things they like with their friends, family, whatever. I want to be safe. I don't want to get phone calls that they're hurt and I'm, like, an hour away. That's not something any parent wants. And I want to be healthy. That's it.
Yeah, those 3 things are really all you can ask for. And I've thought about it way down the road. The thing in, like, going back to kind of what scares me the most is just the exposure to, like, the real world. And, looking back on my childhood, we didn't have, like, the social media, and gosh, we're talking like we're 80. This is crazy. But
When it's moving this fast, though.
yeah, it is. It really is. And, we didn't have the social media, so I didn't really see, like, what was going on. And like we talked about earlier, phones, where I think I got my first phone in 6th grade or 7th grade.
I read something somewhere to interrupt. Someone was
No,
saying
you're
that we used to upload albums of, like, our weekends
Yeah.
on Facebook and MySpace.
Yeah.
The audacity that anyone wanted to see that many photos of
Yeah.
the weekend.
But
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Everyone-
clicked through all of them.
I know. Click through everyone's, what did they do this weekend?
Yeah.
And like my MySpace back at the time, it's like, if people log on, I just want them to hear a cool song and see a cool background.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not even posting, like, what you know what I mean? But yeah, it's just like it is scary, and you really start to put in perspective of your kids growing up in this day and age, and just all the access that they have, and how much easier it is to, like, fall into depression or, like, become suicidal or something like that. And there's only so much you can control,
Yeah.
and you can't shelter them from, they're going to have to go out into the real world one day. And you can do your best to prepare them and to talk them through that. And I think the biggest thing is, for me as a dad, letting my kids know that, like, I'm here. You should be able to talk to, if you're ever going through something, or you're having thoughts or feelings, you should be able to come to me and not be scared. And, I can give you a perspective, because kids, like, the innocence, they don't know, and it just, you see, especially like young kids, teenagers going through, suicidal thoughts or something like that. And it breaks my heart, because I know for the most part, those parents are doing everything they can, but some things you don't know.
Yeah.
If, like, your kid's hiding things and they're so ashamed to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, and I guess we won't know till we get to those crossroads.
And it'll be so different in 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's hard to say, but that's actually one of the main reasons I will not have kids, is because I've had so many terrible experiences, and I just, for my own sanity, can't try to raise someone in 15 years from now. And I don't know, I get so scared, and that's why I just want to do everything I can to be a good person in society for these kids.
Right.
I went and spoke to some kids in 4th and 5th grade at a school in Salt Lake last year, and then I went to this luncheon last week it's a nonprofit called Sapria, and it helps give resources for kids who experience sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
And 1 in 5 in Utah experience it. And so I think those are the things that I'm sure you're talking about when you're talking about, like, the real world, right? Like, It's not the fun things. It's not all the, like, new technology advancements. It's the access that, like, pedophiles have to your kid now, without your kid even knowing, and tracking systems and things like that. And I don't mean to, like, give anxiety, but as a parent, you probably just already have this anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
How are you managing that? Because it seems like it's going to be a constant uphill battle. Things are always going to be advancing. Your kid's going to be changing left and right. What's maybe some way... What was the question I just asked? How are you going to handle that anxiety?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have anxiety, and I don't even... These kids are not mine.
Right, exactly.
And so, how?
Yeah, for me, looking at it, and you go through it a little bit when they're younger, but they're not going out on their own, right? Someone's around.
Right.
So, and it's either they're with, like, my daughter's with her mom and dad or her grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes aunts, uncles, But I think moving forward, it's understanding that you can't control every situation, but you can do your best.
Yeah.
And you can prepare yourself. You can raise your kids, in a manner that hopefully they, if you're a good parent and you're explaining, and it's a delicate situation, but if you're explaining, some of the situations that they might run into, or you just kind of understand. And it does, like, where I grew up, we weren't allowed to, like, walk around, at night, or even at a store. It's like, hold on to my mom's hip.
San Diego before or here?
Yeah, like San Diego.
Okay.
And even, like, when I lived in Ohio. So, like, I feel obviously safer with my kids here. I think it's overall, it's a safe place to grow up. But yeah, like you said, it's just, what you're looking out for when they're out in public. And that's, like, my thing is now, like, I'm picking up before, and I don't know if it's part of, like, a confirmation bias, but when we're walking around, I see someone, like, staring at my wife and daughter, and I'm, like, on alert.
Yeah.
And
your
I'm just
head's, like, always on swivel.
Like, is this person following us? Or, and they're in my sight all the time. So.
That's good.
Yeah. And it's hard to manage, like, the anxiety. I think it's just at some point, you got to kind of have faith that the world is not, a shitty rundown place. That they're going to be okay.
That's a good point, though, because you guys have never really had to have your head on a swivel, huh?
There's been times, just because I didn't, like, I grew up,
As a grown adult, though.
as a grown adult here, like, we've been on trips and stuff, overseas or whatever, where there's been some situations where it's kind of like, nothing ever evolved from it, but like, okay, when we were in Alaska, I felt like we were
Oh shit.
head on a swivel out there, but
Was that work related, though? Or
yeah.
Okay.
You want us to take a little sidetrack on a
Well,
story?
if
or-
you can.
Well-
But I'm just trying to get to the point where, like, I didn't realize that because even having a wife, like you said, it's still you and then her. So she's taking care of herself pretty well, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And now that there's a child involved and, like, your wife's maybe not as aware because she's focusing on the child, you're now more aware. And
Yeah.
that is something that women have had to experience always.
Right.
And so it's been interesting that, like, you're seeing it happen right now. Like, oh, how do you guys feel now that you have to kind of keep your eye out?
I get what you're saying, yeah. And that's, yeah, because, like, if, before, even in high school as a teenager or whatever, I could go somewhere and I'm not, like, looking over my back, walk around. When I used to work at a movie theater in high school, and I'd walk out to my car at 2 in the morning.
And that's not to say that nothing happens to boys and men. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Right.
just saying that,
Statistically.
yeah.
Yes. And, well, yeah, because just going back to that, like, I probably walked out to my car, and we're the last ones there in the theater. So
Yeah.
no one's in the parking lot. And then I
There's
wasn't.
not a light. Not a lot of light around the
No,
theater.
there's
no.
nothing. And people know, And, yeah, one of my managers, she didn't, like, get assaulted, but she was, like, getting robbed. And it was, I don't know the whole story. If,
Right.
like, there was other people with her and they left before her. But, yeah, she walked out and someone was waiting by her car.
There's a statistic right there.
Yep. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's a great point. It definitely is a different feeling. And like I said, like, traveling to certain places, and then, like, when I go back home to Toledo, Ohio to, like, visit family, my head's definitely on a swivel out there. But
Totally.
yeah, now it's a great point. I've never really thought about it, but
Because I feel like I've had to keep my head on a swivel my whole entire life.
right.
And I don't know if that's just because I was a young child. And then I think you guys know I was attacked on the trail at 14 behind my house. And so then I was instantly just like, all right, nothing's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and that's
But that doesn't happen to everyone. But it's just interesting to note that, like, you guys have now developed that sense, and that's very interesting. I think it's beautiful that, like, you're willing to take that on for your family, because now your wife gets to kind of not have her head on a swivel, at least when
Right.
she's with you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's a huge relief.
and I think it's still a little bit different, because just like you said, you made a great point. For even now, my head's on a swivel, but still for
Them.
2 women.
Yeah. It's not
for my
for
daughter
you.
and my wife. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not for me. So, yeah, and it sucks that, that it happens, even today, like, in our society. But
But the more good men like you guys we have out there, the better. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
firmly believe in that. I'm
yeah,
scared shitless most places I go, but I do know that there's always going to be at least one good person in the room.
right, yeah,
Right.
and you're
You know
hoping.
what I mean? Like, I do believe that there is a lot of good people out there.
Yeah,
You just have to be diligent about the bad.
yeah. Well, then you're hoping if shit goes down that all the men aren't taking out their phones and recording it.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
Live streaming it, yelling
Yeah.
World Star. And It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah. So before I talk about keeping my head on a
Okay.
swivel, my kidneys are gonna fucking explode
Go.
if I don't take a
Dude.
piss.
You can go.
This is,
Do you want
yeah.
us to stop, or we can?
You can keep
There's
going.
a constant-
I don't care.
oh, well,
Or if
yeah.
they want to cut it back up, I don't care.
A lot of people, at least in the Utah culture, and I know I'm speaking broadly, and I hope you guys know I'm not speaking about you.
Oh, right.
You think you're gonna offend us or something?
Yeah, come on.
Gosh.
No. But I think a lot of people just go with the motions of what people around them are doing.
100%.
Right? And so it's like, you guys have actively chosen this.
Right.
But we see a lot of people in our community that are not actively choosing to be parents or actively choosing to be good parents.
Right.
You know, and so I just sit back and I'm like, okay, I guess I get to go to bed whenever I want and have a dog that doesn't talk back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll tell you straight up, if it wasn't for Skyly, because, like, she wanted to have kids, if I would have ended up with someone else and they're like, I don't want kids, it wouldn't be a make or break. It'd been like, okay, because it's like, I like money.
Mm-hmm.
I like taking naps. I like doing
my free
whatever.
time.
Yeah, I love
I
love doing whatever, you know? And yeah, it was just like, okay, you want to have kids? I'm on board with that. Or if Skyly told me, like, listen, before we got married, just so you know, I don't want to be a mom. That's not, because I have friends like that. There's people we work with that they'll do like foster placement and stuff, but they're like, we don't want our own kids.
Yeah.
And I never it's like, yeah, I'm not coming from a point where it's like, well, no, you need to, you know, spread your seed and this is what life's about. Like,
carry on your
legacy.
subpar genetics, bro.
Yeah.
You know?
At one point, you know, back in the day, it might have been like that. But
yeah, we don't need polygamy anymore. There's
yeah,
8 billion people on the world.
Yeah, you don't need kids to work on the farm to help you out.
No.
You know,
We have slavery for that, Kaden.
Yeah. Times are changing.
You want to go down a rabbit hole?
So it's like, yeah, you don't need that stuff. So, you know, times have changed, but and it's not. I don't think it's about need. I think it's about like what you want in life, what makes you happy, and if you don't, I never look down. Sometimes. I'm not saying like I envy someone without kids, but it's like, hey, oh yeah, I have friends, you know, no kids. Yeah, we're gonna go do this, and then we're playing poker, drinking till 2 a.m., and we're doing the same shit tomorrow. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? I'm heating up this bottle, and then we're fucking taking a trip to the lights, which I love it. But yeah, it's like I said, if it was like Skyly wanted to have kids, I'm not saying I did it for her, but I was like, oh yeah, that's.
But you found someone that you love, who wanted this life, and you wanted to spend a life with them.
Right.
Yeah. You make sacrifices, or.
And going off what he was saying, like you do, I don't want to say you miss out on going out and doing all this stuff that your friends or whatever without kids are going and doing, but you don't miss it. When you do have kids, you're like, oh, they're doing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where before it's like, what the fuck? I would have wanted to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Why didn't you
now I'm like, like I go to work, and when I'm off, I go home, and I'm like, I don't want to do shit. I want to be home. I want to hang out with my kid and my wife. And this weekend, what are we doing? Oh, we're gonna go to the aquarium. We're gonna take him to the aquarium. You know, like that's what's fun to me. And it's not fun for me. I've seen it before. You know, like me personally, I'm not like, oh yeah, I want to go see the stingrays, you know, but I like watching he's seeing this for the first time. Mm-hmm. So when you go with them, you're almost seeing it for the first time too.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to think like, I wonder what it looks like to him seeing all this stuff. So you don't like, I've said it before to Ashley, like before you have kids, you have this big world of things that matter to you, and then you have kids and it just shrinks all the way down, and it's like as big as your house. Really? And you throw in like your parents, your siblings, some close friends that you have, but like those distant relationships or all those going and partying and doing all this stuff, you're like, I don't want to do that all the time.
Priorities change.
A good once in a while. Yeah. You need an escape, but
listen, if you guys
going through labors.
But yeah, like you want, like that's what I enjoy now is being able to go home and just like be there, be at home, not going home and be like, all right, what are our plans this weekend? I'm home. We're taking care of our kid together.
Yeah.
We're gonna make dinner. Or we're gonna grab dinner. Like we're just with him all the time.
I think I've really realized that too. Like in my friendships that have become families, my thought process, and even when you guys started like dating, my thought process was never like, no, this can't happen. It's like, okay, bring it all in. Okay, right. Now I'm friends with their girlfriends. Now I'm friends with their wives. Now I'm maybe like a aunt to their kids, you know, like figure. To me, like, it never made sense when I would hear people be like, don't bring your kids. I'm like, do you not want your friends anymore then? Or
Right,
like,
yeah.
no, you love them for all of them, and this is all of them now. If, like you said, there's times where you take a break or whatever, mom and dad need that, but bring the kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we need to embrace that side, us friends who don't have kids, a lot more.
Yeah.
And vocally.
Yeah.
Like, be loud about, like, hey, if you guys ever need a break, like, honestly, this is me doing it now for you. If you guys ever need a night out, I'm happy to babysit. Like, would it be more helpful to have friends that are, like, offering that? Do you guys lean on each other? What is...
We talked about
should we pause and get back to what you were going to say before?
We'll get to that because that's going to be later in the discussion. I was going to say, keeping my head on a swivel just briefly. I lived in Peru for 2 years, so I really learned like surroundings, situational awareness, what's happening, all that stuff. But getting back to this, because that's going to go into church, raising your kids in church, all this stuff. That might be a different podcast, but because we might be here till 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
But
do a series on new dads.
Yeah, but what we were talking about just a little while ago was the easiest way for like friends to get together now that we have kids, we have friends that don't have kids. Before it was like, hey, let's all go out. But now, like, the easiest way is like, hey, let's all just get together, have a game night, you know?
Yeah.
Then the friends that do have kids, they don't have to worry about, oh, I got to find a babysitter. I got to ask my mom if she can watch him. Like, we'll just bring them all together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's
like...
how the kids are going to get to know each other and build their friendships.
And, like, I didn't grow up with any brothers, so my kid and my wife doesn't have any brothers. So my kids don't have uncles. Except for, like, my friends. So they're going to have Uncle Kaden, Uncle Landon, Uncle Ryan, you know, Uncle Deontay. All my friends that I grew up with, like, those are their uncles. They don't have any other ones.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Because, honestly, the friends that have let me into, like, their families, I nannied for Quinn and Becca, so that was probably a good kick in the door. But it honestly brings... me so much joy. And I know I've talked to you guys, like, I'm never gonna have kids, so it's vicariously and supportive, but you just don't... I've been surprised, I think, at how everyone decides to go about it. You know, like the no family is blood or family can't be people outside, and I don't know. I think that's an interesting perspective from everyone.
Yeah.
We got Uncle K-Balls.
Uncle K-Balls.
We're trying to set up in
our... going between Kaden and K-Balls, and I'm like, it'll come out of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's going to surface, yeah. People like, Caden's on this pod. Who the hell's that?
We're trying to set up an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
For Eli and Berkeley, so.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep it all.
Let them talk. Let them get to the point where they can talk first.
Yeah.
No, it's already set.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2039, 2040.
Okay.
How old will they be when that comes about?
Well, shit, in 2040.
2040?
2040, Eli will be 18.
19, yeah. You know his son, we had the same birthday?
Yeah.
No.
May 19th.
May 19th.
Don't tell me you forgot what my birthday is, Chelsea.
What's mine?
Gosh.
Don't tell me.
You're a spring baby.
Uh-huh.
No, you're a spring baby.
March.
I threw plenty of birthdays.
I know.
Mine's in March, too. What's mine, Chelsea?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't feel as bad if I miss it.
March 24th.
March 4th.
Oh! You can. Mine's the 26th. Hers the 4th. 24th.
Yeah, that makes sense. There you go.
So.
Okay. I would like to get a little bit lighter because you guys are great dads, and we all know that you love your families. Give us like the hard stories, the funny stories that you guys are both so good at telling.
Oh man.
Logan and I double teamed our own shit our pants story at the Walcots one year, and then you just have endless stories. So
I almost feel like there's like a funny story every day.
Yeah.
Like they're all
But I feel like the general public probably like, this is dumb.
No,
You know?
I
But
honestly
it's, like,
think
funny.
so many people will be able to relate to this. Whether you are still a like first time dad or you've been a dad, you can relate, I think.
Yeah, well, see, mine all center around like getting shit on
So do
Wow.
mine.
for dealing.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, so like I said, it was literally the first day, and we're changing diapers. Like, I changed diapers, my wife had done it, we'd done it together, and there's never a problem.
Uh-huh.
She has to go back to school, so she's like, hey, you got the baby. And it's bright and early, we're sitting on the couch, and I don't know if like when you're a kid and you're playing with the hose, and you like put your thumb over it,
Mm-hmm.
and it like will spray out harder. I don't know if I like created that situation, but I'm wiping her butt and she decides to poop, and it just like shot out like a cannon, and it went up my shorts. It's on my stomach. Like, it came out hard and fast, and it's just all over me. And then as I stand up, my dog, is like sniffing it, like, what the hell just happened?
Did he eat it?
No, I'm like, and I'm trying to like not let it drip on the floor. So like I finish changing her and I don't move, and I wipe most of it up, but it's like in my shorts, and she's on the couch and she's crying. So I like get her up. I'm trying to get the dog out there, and then it was the first time I decided to give her a bath by myself. Okay, so we're in the like, cause when is it, like 8 weeks or something? You can like give them a bath fully.
Like
So
just
they're-
setting them in there.
Like their umbilical cord falls out, and because we
Yeah.
did it like in the sink, and then barely any water, but now it's like we can lay them down, fill the water up, put water on their belly. And yeah, my wife's she coaches cheer as well, so the high school had she's out, I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be a good dad and I'm gonna do the routine, so I get her in the bath and fill the water up, get everything going, little toys were playing, and she just unloads in there. And I'm calling, and my wife's like,
Hot lava.
yeah, she's like, well, she's never done this before. And I'm like, I know, I don't know what to tell you, but she did it, so what do I do? And it's like, well, you gotta drain the water. So then I'm back to washing her, like, I think it was in our bathtub in our room or something. So yeah, it was just, and then there was like tons more times, like, hey, I'm changing a diaper, and then I get shit on my hand, or she poops on the rug, and I'm just like, okay, this is not happening to you, it's only happening to me. And I'm just like, what? Or like my in-laws or my parents, it got to the point where I'm asking them, like, did you have to change your diaper today? Like, well, yeah, I had her for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm like, she shit on you? And they're like, no. So I don't know if like she was just like rebelling against me, but yeah, that was all. And to them it's hilarious, but to me it's like I'm gagging, I'm trying to carry her out of the room, and like I'm having an episode.
Yeah, have
This
you
turns
ever
into a
vomited
disaster.
while-
No, but I've gotten close. And it's usually well, luckily when these things happen, she was eating real food yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But it's just water at that point, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like mustard.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, and I felt like dad of the year,
Yeah.
because I got friends like, well, I've only changed a diaper, I can count on one hand, or
Dad of the year.
yeah, and I'm just like, I'm changing diapers daily, like
Yeah.
I got this. And then she started eating real food, and it was rough. Like I'm gagging bad. My wife's like, just let me do it, and then my daughter's staring at me like, what the hell's going on? Because I'm leaning
You
over her.
incompetent piece of shit.
Yeah, and I'm trying to not look and not smell it, but then as I'm breathing through my mouth, I'm like, oh, now all the particles are getting in my mouth. And then it just turns into, now it's even worse because I'm like, I gotta vomit, I gotta get this out of me. And yeah, so it was, that's probably like, my wife probably gets joy out of that, watching me. And out of repetition, you start to get better, But when she threw up on me and stuff, that wasn't a problem. But yeah, when they start eating real food, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's not bad at all. And I felt, me and my brother have like almost a 10-year age gap,
Mm-hmm.
and I know for a fact I've changed his diapers, and I feel like I've never had this problem.
But you were a kid when you were changing those
Right,
diapers.
yeah.
Like, my mom needs me, probably.
Well, I'm a man now. I feel like I should be able to handle it better, and it's like just gotten worse. I'm barely hanging on.
Oh man.
But yeah, I don't know. That's
Logan?
That's probably it.
One time we went out, this is a couple months ago. It was a Saturday, and we went to Target. And he's getting bigger, like old enough to hold himself up in the shopping cart, you know. So we get to Target, and I'm like, hey, should we take him out and like let him sit in the cart? And she's like, no, we're only getting a couple things. Like, let's just. We have the car seat that just goes straight into a stroller, so it's really easy to just take him out, stroller, push him around. So we go to Target, and then we're going to. It was TJ Maxx. After that, we get to TJ Maxx. I'm like, all right, we're getting more stuff here. Let's take him out. And I go to get him out, and he's soaked. And I'm like, what is this? And I lean down and smell him. I'm like, he's shit. It was his whole back. His, like, all the way down to his, it was everywhere. And he hadn't pooped for, like, a couple days.
Oh!
So we knew something was coming. We started giving him prunes and stuff to help him out. Some constipation shit. And so we're in TJ Maxx parking lot. We got the back of the car open.
Yeah,
and it looks like we're operating on this baby. You know, we got all his clothes off. We're like wiping him off, changing him, everything. And cars are driving past. We're like, people are probably laughing at us so hard, but we're like, what are we gonna do?
Literally.
Like, we're not just gonna, all right,
Exactly
just leave
what
him
you're
in there
doing.
and push him through the store, you know. But just stuff like that happens all the time,
I can't
and especially when he's first born, you're changing his diaper. Once the cold air hits that thing, it just starts going, you know. So you gotta open it up, close it. And these might be tips for you.
Yeah.
Open it up, let it air out,
Good know.
close it, open it up again, wait, and then it's like lightning round. Once you open it up for good, you're like, clean it up, cover it again. Because it just, they got smaller bladders than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you're
if you
And
put it all the
mine's
time,
pretty
so-
small. So,
Yeah.
and just like every time we'd put him in the bath, he's spraying. Once he gets in the water, peeing. You know, he peed on my wife, puked on my wife. He hasn't puked on me bad yet, but one time my wife was like playing with him, and she held him up, and then he just like puked all over her face.
Oh.
I'm glad that
So
didn't
then
happen.
would you say it's the, like, him peeing on you is the hardest part of
Changing
a
a diaper.
diaper? Because obviously
Probably-
the shit's going to be hard.
Probably because he's a boy. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about which way you're wiping. You know, just clean everything up. He did shit on us, and I don't know how babies do it, but they have like strong push factor.
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, because like one time I was changing him. It might have been my wife. I don't remember. But we're like wiping him, and he shits, and it shot a couple feet. You know, just. I'm like,
Yeah.
I thought it just came out. Like, how are you pushing that hard? You know, but
Oh, they do it.
babies do it. They're messy, and
They do it. On a different note,
Yeah.
still on the same topic, but like some of the funny moments too is like watching them try new things. So like the food,
Yes.
which we didn't really get that with my daughter because she loves everything. So even
I did
like
see a lemon with her.
she loves them.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe a different baby.
So she yeah, and so my wife's family, they love like hot food. So I go over there for dinner, you know, it's like, oh, we got salsa. I'm taking a bite and I'm dying. I'm like, holy shit. You know, I'm sweating and they're all like, what's going on? So I don't know if she gets it from them, but yeah, like a lemon. And we don't like give her hot food obviously
Right.
because when it comes out, you know, be painful, but there's been times where she's just like dying for like a hot fry or like a hot Cheeto. And so we just let her taste it and nothing. Like we let her like lick Warheads or some sour.
Does she have taste buds?
She loves it. Well, she does because, and it might have been the carbonation, but like we don't give her soda or anything.
Yeah.
But we're at dinner, and she's just like freaking out. So I'm like, hey, if she just tries it, but in our
Bubbles.
mind we're like, she's gonna try it and love it and keep coming back for more. So we're like, no. Well, we let her try like my wife's Dr Pepper, and just the face she made. I think it was a carbonation. You know, I'll show you the video.
It's like Pop Rocks in her mouth. Or
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was not having it. But it's things like that, and then like we put a life jacket on her once, and it's like her rolls all up in her neck, and she just like didn't know where to go. So it's little things like that, and then like the funniest moments are probably her like interacting with her dog,
Yeah.
because he is the best dog that like we could have asked for. He's a Rottweiler, right? He's big, he's heavy, but she every morning like kiss, kiss, and she like will headbutt him. She'll pull his hair out. She'll put her fingers in his mouth, and he doesn't budge.
Good.
So it's like we laugh like every morning because as soon as we wake up, first thing she's asking for Bronx. It's her dog's name, so we gotta take her downstairs. We call him up, and then yeah, just like her interacting, but like they're both like clueless with the situation, so it's
Yeah.
usually kind of turns into a shit show at some point. But yeah, and most people are like that's not that funny, but us
No.
watching them like interact, and they're both like what amuses them is comparable.
Yeah.
Like he likes the ball or a toy, she likes the same thing, so they're fighting over it. She's hitting him, he's running away.
Well,
So
I mean, we've all had dog kids.
mhm.
You guys had dog kids before human kids. And it's a transition. Those dogs think they're humans to an extent, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bring this baby in, and they all of a sudden have to be extra gentle, extra all the things they don't want to be, right? Patient.
Mhm.
Dogs are wild animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, our
It's
dogs.
beautiful to see them connect.
Our
Yeah.
dogs were so pissed the first couple weeks we brought Eli home. They were like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
We had it made,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you bring this thing here.
Yeah.
Like one of our dogs, she ate like 6 binkies.
Ruby?
Remy, like they would just, we'd have it. They were like the blue, all silicone ones, and we'd have them, and then they'd be gone. We'd be like, where do these binkies keep coming from? Then I'd go out to mow the lawn, and I'd scoop up all the dog shit, and I'm like, there's the binkies. She's waiting for us to leave one sitting there, and she's just munching it.
Are they good now?
Oh, they're great now. They have the longer hair,
Uh-huh.
and they'll go up to like smell him, play with him, whatever, and he'll just like latch on. So like their whiskers, and he's just like screaming, laughing, and they're like, this hurts, but I'm not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like they keep going back for more. Like they like to play with him. He loves to play with them. So
It's interesting
and that's
to watch the relationships
Yeah.
develop.
Oh, it's
isn't it?
it's crazy.
the dynamic is fun to watch because Ruby is like super skittish around people, but with him she's like having all this fun, and her and Remy will fight. He thinks that's the funniest thing in the world. When they play fight, he'll just bust up laughing. So it's fun to watch this dynamic that they have between this baby and these 2 dogs, and none of them know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
But
No
they think,
context whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
they just think
there's-
it's awesome,
Yeah.
Am I a dog too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look like those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we had to buy my dog Binkies, like his own set. No.
That's hilarious.
And he we would put it in his mouth like a bit. He's obviously not sucking on it,
No.
but what he liked is grabbing them and then like dropping them down the stairs. Cuz they're rubber, right? So they're just like
Bouncy.
flinging all over. So he picked that up quick, but it was any time, right? We put a Binky down and he just run up, grab it, take off. So we bought him his own, and then my dog is, I know everyone says like, oh, my dog's the best and super smart. But I just try to tell him like, these are yours, and like you can't take
Are
these
they
ones.
a different color?
They are.
Okay.
Yep. So, and they're like not like bigger, but they have like a little handle on the end that he can grab. And yeah, it's like a red one and a blue one. And for a time, yeah, he would only grab those. But we'd put it in his mouth like a baby, and he'd just walk around with it.
Who knew? You'd have so
It's-
many functions.
I know, it's so crazy. And yeah, because he was a rough puppy.
Yeah.
And instinctually he's a Rottweiler,
Right.
so he's a little bit more aggressive, but yeah,
But
once-
also they're so loving.
Yeah.
Mine's
Mhm.
part rot, and I think that she gets that loving side from that.
Yeah, and he does, he will lick the side of her face, and, if I, slap him around, he's, goes into play mode.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows with her, she'll grab, his eyelids or, his whiskers or his gums. And, we'll tell, you gotta be soft, you
Right.
gotta be nice. But he'll just stare off in the distance, and then once she turns her back, he's gone. You know, he's like, get me out of here. But yeah, he is just so, and we were worried about that. I'm like, because he was still young when we brought her home.
But
So
he started to change a little bit when Skylie got pregnant. She was telling me that she started to get, he was getting
bad.
really protective.
So he got, and you know what? It's hard to prove things with a dog, right? 'Cause you're not in their mind.
Right.
They do research and, but yeah, so I read this like very interesting article.
We give dogs all the praise on this podcast, so go as
Okay.
far as you want.
Okay. So yeah, you'll get a kick out of this. So I did this research and it's from, and there's a lot out of it. Like you can just go on and, you know, Pet MD or they have
Right.
these veterinarians that talk.
You love those MDs.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I got to get away from them. But yeah, there was this really interesting, and I can't remember who this veterinarian was like associated with, but she had done tons of and this was her, like her goal was to see why dogs react this way with kids. And he got so when my wife was pregnant, like so protective over her, and I didn't really know why. I just thought like, oh, because like we have a German Shepherd that's like really protective over my mom, but he would just like bark and stuff. Well, if my wife would just give me a hug, he'd like growl or come up, and like he'd never bit me.
It was more towards you though.
Yeah, but he would like nudge us and separate us. So, and then like when people come over and they get close to my wife, he'd just be on edge. I could see the hair on the back of his neck stand up. And then he started marking in our house.
No.
Everywhere. And it was a daily thing. And even during this pregnancy, same thing. And I would do everything to correct him.
It's got to be a smell or something, right?
So that's what I read in this is some of like the like pheromones, hormones that are going through the air.
Well, dogs can smell time.
Yeah, there's crazy shit.
So
I've heard that they can smell you coming down the street. Like when you're coming home from work driving, they can smell you. Because my wife will say, like, right before I get home and open the garage, like I'm still down the street, they'll like perk up and start like running to the front window, running
Which
to the
is
garage,
true.
and
I've
then
been
the
there.
garage will open.
when that happens.
Yeah. So like they know, they can feel, I don't know if they can feel you or they can smell you. And Remy, when Ashley first got pregnant, this is before we even knew, she would never like sleep on our bed, but she started coming, like we'd lay in bed and then Remy would come up and like lay her chin on my wife's stomach.
Before you even knew.
Yeah, before we even knew.
I love dogs.
Yeah.
And he like Bronx, he started marking the house. I'm like, oh, so we can't. And he had never, like when he was a puppy, have accidents, and then he was fine. And then it was like later on in her pregnancy, he started doing this. And so I'm reading this article and this veterinarian saying like, yeah, when they sense all that, they're marking like the territory. And like he's not fixed. So like he's a dominant, aggressive
Right.
dog. And yeah, they're like he doesn't care. There's nothing you can do. Like he's and
Unless you get him fixed, maybe. But that's
and they
not-
said it might help, but because just like his testosterone's still high, you know, but in it's certain breeds. But yeah, he was marking, and it didn't matter what I did. He would just, and he'd do it in front of me, but he would do it at certain parts, and it was like where my wife would sit, where she hung out more in the house. It was like 3 areas that, like, if we'd come down in the morning, or like letting him roam, and if he ever marked, it was in that spot. And then she had the baby, and it was done. But then certain things started to change. Like our room upstairs, like gets hot most of the time, so he would never sleep up there. He'd either go out on the landing or just go downstairs in his bed. And now it's with the baby, especially when she was in our room, he would have to sleep in there all the time. So he's either, and he won't like sleep on the bed. I think it gets crowded, it gets hot, but he would sleep on the floor by her bassinet or by the door. And now that she's out of the room, he'll kind of like, he'll stay in there for like the first hour or two, and then he'll go out as it gets hot. But yeah, there was times, and like we wouldn't put him in his kennel to sleep because like he stopped marking and we trusted him.
Right.
So, and then even before my wife was pregnant, like once he was like kennel trained and potty trained, I'd let him sleep anywhere. Like he can sleep downstairs, he can sleep up here, like there was no worry. But yeah, once we brought her home and like our room would get warm because like we're trying to keep it comfortable for her, and yeah, it just changed. He slept in there every single night.
Wow.
And anywhere my wife went, he'd follow. He's always looking at the baby. And it was, and reading some of these things online, especially what this veterinarian's posting, they're like, yeah, it's like a protective thing, it's a territorial thing. And then so when we brought the baby home, I'm like, well, I hope he doesn't turn aggressive I don't know. He's never been around a baby. He's been around kids.
Right.
And yeah, it was just from day one. Just wanted to lick her,
He's
give her
super
bath.
gentle.
He has to sit in between us. Anytime we give her a bath, he has to sit in between, and then he just like has his head on the edge. Or he's just sitting there watching. And then we put her to bed. He lays in her room, put her to sleep, then he comes sleeps with us. It has changed him for sure. Because before he was just running rampant and doing whatever, and
didn't really care what you guys were up to, maybe.
But now, yeah, and he loves our daughter. He is always around, just like always investigating what she's doing, following her around, and then he knows like if he turns sharp or she's near, he'll like back up, and then he'll go.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
Funny.
Sorry. I want to get back to what you were going to say. And can you help me get back there?
With
Before he
talking
had to
about?
pee or after?
Before you had to pee.
He talked about head on a swivel.
keep my head on a swivel.
So you're good at that. But then I think that was a tangent.
Yeah, that was going to be a tangent. So I was going to say, I went on my mission to Peru. So like we were talking about earlier, I learned like this situational awareness. And now I'm no longer in the church, don't go to church, don't associate it with it at all. So I think we're going to talk about how raising your kids.
Oh, I'd love that. If you'd like to touch on that, I'd love to.
You want to get into that on this podcast?
Yeah.
Because we both had like this
Well,
different...
We've got 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, we can close it out.
Yeah.
We might go over. But,
You're good.
I left the church right after I met Ashley. We'd been dating for maybe 6 months or something when I left the church. So it's been a while. It's not like a new thing.
Right.
And all of Ashley's family, they're all Catholic. Ashley's baptized, so is her sister. She has a niece that's baptized. And I never had any like pressure from my family, like, oh, are you gonna give him a baby blessing? You gonna take him to church? Nobody ever asked me that, because they probably know what my answer would be. It's no. But with Ashley's family, they were always like, are you guys gonna do like a baptism in the Catholic church, whatever? And I was always like, no. And Ashley was always on the fence for a little bit, like, oh, I would want to. And then I remember talking to her, I'm like, well, do you want to do it because you want to do that, or are you doing it because that's what your family wants you to do? I'm like, since I've known you, you haven't gone to church. We've never gone to church. Your parents don't go to church. Your grandparents that want you to the most, they're super religious, but they don't go to church every week, or really at all, except for maybe Christmas and Easter, So my big thing as far as religion with my kids is I want them to learn how to think, how to process information before they're being told what to think. Because then they grow up always comparing something against what they've always been told. Or if they grow up and I can somehow get them to have like this analytical, curious mindset where they hear something and they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like that doesn't add up. Or let me look into that a little bit more before I just take your word for it. Because that's an outrageous claim. Might be true.
Helping them find resources.
Yeah, but I don't want them to be people that are like gullible. They're always taking stuff at face value. Like, look into something. Use your head to think about it. Think, does this piece of information really make sense? I mean, we could use Santa Claus, for example, right? Does it really make sense for a dude in a red suit with a sleigh that flies, that's pulled by reindeer, to go to every kid's house in one night in the whole world. Think about it. Does that really make sense?
No, it's kind of creepy. But
No. And he's always watching you.
so does that mean you're not gonna have Santa?
Oh, time out. You tell me Santa's not real? Is that where we're going with this?
I'm sorry to break it to you, but
you gullible.
no, I think what we will do is we'll do one present from Santa, because it's fun to watch kids, you know.
The magic of Christmas.
And there's nothing malicious about it.
Right.
There's nothing that is going to damage them further on the line.
Well, what's more malicious, right? Flat out lying to your kid,
Yeah.
or I don't know. Like that's up to parents to
Yeah.
decide. I think.
But once they get old enough, because we want to do one present from Santa, because we don't want them to go to school and be like, "Oh, Santa brought me a PlayStation 6," you know, and this kid's like, "I got T-shirts and socks," you know.
But that's probably your guys' lived experience
Yeah.
playing in.
So we want to be like, "Hey, you can get one present from Santa that's not this huge thing, something that will be comparable, like Santa brought you this hoodie,"
Yeah.
you know. But I don't know why we started talking about Santa.
No.
But Santa, you know, like you, we're talking about Christmas now.
Yeah.
But I was using that as an example because you can use Santa as like the same thing, you know, bearded man, always watching, always he knows if you're good or bad. He knows if you're asleep or awake, every little move you do.
So that's a good point, though. Like, especially if there's people out there who have kids and they're in a religion, or maybe they're going through like a faith transition or something like that. Since you don't have religion and that's like an active choice of your guys's, and we'll get to you, Kaden, but what are you using then? Because you can still have morals and values and things
Right.
like that without religion.
Right.
What are you guys using?
Well, I don't think you need a religion to have good morals. And if you do,
Yeah.
you're probably a shitty person. If that's your, well, if I didn't believe in God, then I could just go kill anybody.
Right.
Right, you could do that. But
That'd be
if
shitty.
you're saying you would do that if you lost your faith in God, then don't lose your faith in God. You know,
Yeah.
religion works and it's necessary for a lot of people,
I agree.
but I don't think that it's something that you 100% need to be a good person. Like most of my friends now, K-Balls didn't grow up in
Right.
going to church. Deontay didn't grow up going to church. Landon didn't grow up going to church.
Right.
So it can be done. I think it's just more of the responsibility is placed on the parent and like the environment that you create as a parent, and you don't rely on a church to make up for where you're falling short, you know. Not that any parents do. My parents didn't. I was raised in a church. My parents were great. I don't regret anything about my experience.
Right. Got you to where you are today.
Yeah, got me to where I am today. I don't. That's what a lot of people ask me. Like, do you regret going on a mission? 0%. I loved it. It was awesome. But then I learned a lot of stuff, and I realized it's going to be better for me to just not be associated with this at all.
Right.
So, yeah, I just want my kids to be able to think for themselves. They're not relying on, oh, well, the guy at church, he told me this, and
Yeah.
he says gay people shouldn't be married. And if he's high up in the church, then I should probably listen to him, and that's going to be my mindset for the rest of my life. I'm like, no, I don't want my kids to be influenced by that.
Just you.
Yeah, just me. I'm the...
But I think that's good. Like, keep it in a central place. As long as, like, you have the intention to educate your kids.
Yeah.
And tell them how to be good people and show them those resources.
Well-
You're their church right now, you know?
Even if I'm going to raise them to have that mindset, I'm sure there will be times when they're older, 20s, where they're going to disagree with me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to be like, well, this is how I raised you. I raised you to think for yourself.
Exactly.
I raised you to be your own person, have your own mindset. So now I'm going to have to learn from you, take from your mindset, because I didn't have that mindset growing up.
Right.
So it's kind of like I can't indoctrinate them to what I want them to be.
No, because then you'd just be repeating.
Yeah, then I'm just repeating what religions all over the world are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do enough to get them to that mindset, but not overemphasize things like that, you know.
Yeah. I think the thing that helped me broaden my mind was just knowing how much information was out there.
Right.
If you want to know something, you can go find it.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with that mentality.
You don't have to take anybody's word for anything
Yeah.
today. Because if somebody tells me something, I can pull out my phone and be like, "Oh, you're right," or "No, you're wrong. That's not what this says."
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the access to information compared to 20, even 10 years ago when we were in high school
Yeah,
is crazy now.
totally.
So
Yeah.
I'll let you go on your experience with this.
Yeah. So
If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to either.
oh no, I'm an
Okay.
open book. I will talk about anything. And I've heard, and it could be a sensitive topic for some, right? It could be, and I understand like all aspects of it.
We're just speaking on our own experiences. here,
Right.
so.
Yes. And so for me, right, and this is just like, this is what I believe, and it's subject to opinion, but I feel like overall as people, we do a pretty like good job at being good people.
I agree.
Right? I feel like for every, and don't like crunch me on these numbers, but for every like maybe one bad, malicious person, there's 1,000 good. And I've seen it just in situations throughout my life, and sometimes people are put into a situation where some bad things come out. But that's why I feel like overall, people are good, the vast majority. And you made a great point, because I hear this a lot. It's, well, where do you get your moral standing? If you don't have X, Y, and Z, where are you getting it from? It had to come from somewhere. And I asked a good friend this once, and because it was with religious things and topic of God and everything, he doesn't truly believe it all, if any of it. But he said, I feel like I'm a better person and I'm the best version of myself and like the best example if I'm following this religion and God. Well, I took that on the flip side and was like, and really thought about it. And I'm like, well, I feel like I'm the best version of myself and the best example like I can be because of the people that I love. I'm not giving credit to an external source of whether it be like religion or God. I'm not knocking it, but I don't feel like I need to be the best version of myself for that. Like, if that's what gets you through, that's fine. But I'm going to be the best version of myself for my daughter, my wife, my son, my parents, my sister-in-laws, my brother-in-law, my brother, for sure. Like, I think that's kind of where it started, was, we went to church here and there in San Diego, and there was a couple years, but we never were, like, very religious or, spiritual people. And for me, there's really no excuse of like, well, no, your moral standing came from this, because I didn't really have that. And, I like to think I'm a good person. I know people, friends tell me all the time. But with like when my brother was born and he was growing up, it was, I knew everything I do, he was going to copy.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it wasn't like, okay, well, because obviously I would do things, that I wasn't necessarily proud of, but I wasn't teaching him how to go steal things or teaching him how to disrespect people or how to bully kids, and even my parents, like my dad didn't have like the best upbringing. It was actually like really, really rough. And he never had that, like, where did that moral compass come from? Because he'd tell me like, yeah, you don't, like, if someone's getting picked on or something in school, you're not joining it because it's cool, right? Like, you diffuse a situation. It was just all those little things. And it's like, well, where does that come from? And that's just looking on my personal experiences. Like, I've never had that. So there's no excuse of, no, well, you got this because you were once affiliated with an organization or whatever. It's just like when I look into my daughter's eyes, or even like my wife, my parents, my brother, like I want to be a great person. And then like my friends too, and just society, I want to be someone that people want to be around. And I credit what drives me to do that is for my loved ones and just for society as a whole. And it's not it for me. And someone could say, oh well, no, he's hiding something. He got this from somewhere. He's just speaking out of his ass.
I think you got it from your lived experience, and your dad got it from his lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you choose to either pick up those things and keep them with you, and they make your personality and your traits and all of that, or you leave it there.
Yeah.
I think that's just what it is, right? Like, because you guys are going based off your now lived experience, right? Like, since being in the church. And I mean, that's all we can really ask for. I think if you have like a faith crisis where you're leaving a like structural set of moral values, that's also more like can be more destabilizing than growing up without a religion at all. You know what I mean? Because then your compass is all like going fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas yours has been pretty steady your whole life. You know what I mean? Like, it ebbs and flows as like life phases and changes. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No, and that's, yeah, perfectly said. And that's where I hear people, it's like, well, it comes, and then when you really do, like, sometimes, because I've done, like, some deep research on certain topics relating to religion, and, yeah, and that's kind of, like, one of the, like, pillars that they stand on is, well, if we didn't have this, where would, like, the moral compass set in? Or where would you get your... where would you learn right from wrong? It had to stem from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you really look out in the world today, like some of the best people I've met, just like, if people met my dad today, they probably have no idea of like what his upbringing was. And, you guys know,
He's
you guys
so
met him.
nice and
Right.
just sweet.
Yeah. And like my upbringing, he was just like so, he would correct me and my brother when we were wrong, but I was never scared of him. I was never, and you see...
I was going to say, I spent so much time at your house in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was never, like, it was a second home to me.
Right,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, your parents were always very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother, it was like having a little brother around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
that's what you want. And I think being adults and trying to find out what that moral compass is or where it comes from, for me, it comes from, like you said, just doing research and looking into things a little bit more. Or, like, I've just found the more comfortable I am with what I believe, it doesn't matter what other people believe around me. And I can be a better friend to people if I'm just more solid in what I believe and how I want to act and things like that, because I wasn't so worried about reacting to everyone. I'm just like, this is me. This is how it is. And I don't have to take offense to your beliefs because I know mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I felt like when I didn't know that, I was all over the place and I just didn't know. And so, like, how could I raise a kid? But it sounds like you guys have found, like, who you are. I mean, what? We're 28 now? 27?
I'll be 28 and, jeez.
We just talked about our birthdays.
I'll be 28 this
We're
year.
all going to be 28.
Yeah.
I'll be 28.
That seemed so old 10 years ago, and now I'm like, I'm a baby. I'm at the beginning of my life and who I want to be.
Yeah, you look back at, like right now, you look at kids that are like just graduating high school,
Oh my God.
and you see them and they're like, oh, like, this is so awesome. We finally made it. We're adults.
know
I'm
who
like,
I
you
am.
guys don't know
You have no idea.
the first half of it, you know,
Yeah.
like, and
No
I remember
idea.
having the same mindset, so I'm not like knocking them, but it's funny to look back and be like, you guys don't know shit, man.
Yeah.
You haven't been through it. And in saying all this, I don't want to take away from anybody's experience or beliefs, because
No.
it works for a lot of people, but it's not something that I want to force my kids to. Like, if he has this mindset and he grows up and he's like, hey, I really like this church, you know, it helps me, I'll be like, cool, whatever helps you be a better person and be happy. Like I said earlier, I just want you to be happy, whatever it takes, you know, and I'll accept that. So
Yeah.
And me and my wife had talked about this because a lot for me, it's like breaking down the pros and cons, right? And I'm like, aside of, okay, well, you're going to get, you're looking for the afterlife, all that stuff. Afterlife, you're going to be saved if you do this. I'm just like, what if we're raising our kids, right? And I would like to think I'm like an intelligent person, and I know my wife is. So, like, if we know right and wrong, right, and we know how to progress through life and how to raise our kids, what are we getting a benefit? Or, like, is there really something that we're missing?
Right.
That we need someone else to intervene and tell us, like, no, you might have these drives or certain things you can do, but this is not the path. It's like, I either need proof of that, or we really need to sit down and come to, like, a conclusion on, no, we're not on the right path. And I've never once in my life felt like I was ever on the wrong path, or like not doing things right, or like a great person.
That's really fortunate, I think.
Yeah, and like Logan said, not taking away from anybody. I'm not bashing anything.
No.
But it's like, if we don't need that, then that should just be it.
Then that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel with people. Like, I never sit there like, oh, you're choosing to go down this, well, like, it's gonna suck when you find out that you're wrong.
No.
Like,
Right.
this is your life, this is your experience. If that's what you need, or you feel that, whatever. But just like going back to when my friend was telling me, like, yeah, he might have felt like he's not going to be the best version of himself if he doesn't follow God. And, to me, with our kids, it's just like, I'm the best version for them and my loved ones. I don't see a need to give, like, gratitude or to follow a path on that. And just leading into, like, my kids, no, we need to be involved in this, or we need to be a part of this group. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a good dad.
Right.
Or a good person just in general,
Mm-hmm.
I've never, but it's a great question because, it's really hard to pinpoint where those morals come from. And I think it's just like being around the right people, hopefully you have a good experience. And then it's talking about raising kids. It's that adolescence, like what experiences they have, like, and you just pray that there's nothing traumatizing.
I was
that
going to say,
happens.
though, but, like, this is such a pivotal point in their lives. It's like that 0 to 1.
Oh, it's
you
huge.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
0 to 2. And I think we probably don't even have the research that shows the kind of damage we can do in those years unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so with just you guys being, like, diligent and trying to go the right way, and at least having these thoughts of, like, what kind of dad do I want to be? What kind of kid do I want to raise? Kids do I want to raise? Like, I think that's such a beautiful first start, because a lot of people aren't even asking those questions.
Right.
Like, there's been billboards up and down the I-15 the past few years that's like, be a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to be a dad, and I'm really proud of you guys for doing that.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I
Thank
don't
you.
need to have you on my podcast to tell you that,
Right.
but thank you for taking the time and, like, sharing these vulnerable things. I really would love to have you guys back, because
Oh, we'll do it.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll
life
do
changes
it.
so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for coming.
Oh,
And
of
Oh,
is
course.
there
no
anything
problem.
else you guys wanted to touch on before we end?
No, I think this is awesome what
Yeah.
you're doing. This is sweet, and we really enjoyed it. So
Yeah, I enjoyed it for
maybe
sure.
we'll make this like a 10-parter or something.
Yeah.
Honestly, because
We got a
the
lot to talk
conversation
about.
just
Yeah.
continues,
Yeah.
and
We
we'll
could
probably change our minds as we go too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I've learned to end on is don't be stuck on any idea. Because having a kid, you might have a plan of how it's going to go, how the birth's going to be, how you're going to raise your kid. And as soon as you get stuck in this mindset of this is how it's going to be, anytime it deviates from that, that's like anxiety. Like, oh, this, I wasn't expecting this. Or with religion, or with any thought process. Don't get stuck on any kind of idea.
Well, aren't you glad that your parents didn't get stuck
Yeah.
in a relationship with you because you didn't go get married in the temple?
Right.
Same.
Yeah, and
like,
they-
I'm very grateful that they were able to adapt to me as
Yeah.
well.
And part of it is because that's kind of how my parents raised me to be was, and my sisters, to be like individuals that are smart, that think things through, that have personalities, that don't take any shit, you know. So when I did leave the church, it was kind of like self-inflicted for them, you know, like this is who we raised him to be, you know, to think for himself. We kind of have to, and they've been great.
Good.
All along. We've never had any problems. They're the best grandparents. They've always been supportive of me, and I really appreciate, you know, everything they do. I love them. So my experience has been great, and I know a lot of people aren't as fortunate as maybe we are to have these great parents that always support us. But
even if we change our lifestyles,
even if we come home with tattoos and start drinking coffee and beer and
sorry,
but
I'm not sorry.
But yeah, it's great, and this was really fun. I loved it.
Well,
Yeah. One quick point.
Yeah.
I'll just make like advice to the dads, right? I could say just from my experiences, you know, you have work, things around the house have to get done, right? You're supporting your family. That might not be the dynamic. I don't want to, you know, make it sexist or anything, but if you're in that,
the dynamic is,
you know, whatever it is, if you're in that role where you're the, you know, main provider, like really take time to enjoy things. And, you know, when you come home, you should be the dad where your kids are excited. You know, it's not like, oh gosh, dad's home now. This is, you know, he's mean and scary, or like your wife, like, oh, he's going to raise his voice at me. You know, that's my goal is I want my wife and my kids like to want me home all the time and to feel safe around me, and that I can prove it, you know, that this is like what their life is like, and that, you know, my wife always feels safe and taken care of, and then my kids always just feel safe and they want me around. I'm not someone that's scary, you know, I'm not raising my voice, or I know you got to discipline, you know, that things come.
Right.
But don't overdo it. Like as a father and as like, you know, a man, you can hold a lot of weight and feelings and, you know, thoughts. So I think being like cognitive of that and being a good, like, you know, the balance of stern and gentle. It's really, really delicate.
Well, even Logan touched on, like, you were very open and being like, she cried, I cried. Like, I think it's beautiful to be able to show all emotions as a man for your kids, because then they know that, like, you're a human too.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, you're not some machine that's funneling
in
money
charge
into
of
the house.
them, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that'd just be my advice. It's hard to deal with, but, you know, just keep in mind that you should be the dad and the husband that your family wants around. And they feel safe with you always. That's just my advice.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And it's not always easy to do that. Because you might be coming home from work, you had a long, rough day, and then you're pulling in and you're like, oh, shit, I'm tired. I'm kind of ornery, but I gotta put that aside because, you know, my kid and my wife, they've also been here all day, and they're waiting for me to come home, so I'm not going to come home and shit on everybody's party, you know?
Yep.
And I've had great examples of that, luckily. My dad, awesome, number one dad. His dad, my grandpa, awesome. My mom's dad, awesome. So I've had perfect examples of all these father figures in my life that I can learn from, that I can build on, and take that with me, I guess. It's not just like, and I've heard it a lot, like, oh, you know, as a dad, you got to be there. But it's a lot more than just being present, you know?
Oh, for sure.
It's interacting, it's caring for them.
Right.
And not just your kids, because your wife needs help too. She's your partner. So you can't just like, oh, I'm all about my kids, and when I have time, I'll be there for my wife too, I guess. It's this whole fluctuating dynamic that you have to learn to balance.
Yeah, and it's selfish for both parents at the beginning, because my daughter is not going to remember any of these times.
Right.
But obviously, right, you can't, even though they're not going to remember it, you still, you know, have to be good to them and, be a good parent, right? Like a lot of people do. But on the selfish side, really take the time to enjoy the little things. Slow down, right? Something doesn't, like, if your daughter, your son wants to play and they're two, it's like, well, no, I got to go mow the lawn. Like, you can take time.
Be in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't, in 10 years, it's going to fly by.
Right.
And you don't want to look back and be like, oh man, yeah, I had to work and I was staying at work 30 minutes late and I was taking care of this because I had to get done. They're not going to remember it. It's going to come back to haunt you at some point.
Yeah.
So the earlier you can catch it, the better. And if you're the dad that years have gone by and you're reflecting like, oh man, you can always change it.
Yeah, it's never
At the
too
point.
late.
No,
It really
never.
isn't.
And you only have little kids for 2 or 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 4. But once they start
Like, so fast.
getting older, you're going to look back and be like, where was I when they were little? So that's why I enjoy so much of my time being at home with my family, because it's not always going to be that way.
Right.
Like, I think back to just when I was a kid and like how my family dynamic was, and it was great. And I want my kids to kind of grow up with that too. Like, oh,
Fond
dad's
memories.
here, mom's here, we have this fun family. And I don't want them to look back and be like, yeah, I don't remember dad like doing anything till we were like 13. Then he was like around. And I don't want to knock anybody, because some dads are working a lot to support their family.
Right.
So
Every
they can
dynamic's
be there.
different.
But you have to, if you have the ability to prioritize your time to be, not just be there in the same house, but to be totally present when you are there, that's what your family, not just your kids, but your wife too, that's what they need, is that, your presence. You're not just on the couch watching
Yeah.
TV and mom's taking care of the kids and then you go up and go to bed. To be there interacting with everybody is what is going to be really important for me going forward with Eli and with our future kids. I want them to be able to look back and remember, oh yeah, dad was there, like my dad was.
Yeah.
Yeah. If my kids have the childhood that I had, it's a success.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Because my mom was just absolutely awesome. My dad was absolutely awesome. And it's like just the little things of like 10 o'clock at night, like, hey, can I go spend the night at someone's house? My mom's like, yeah, go get your stuff. It's things like that. Like, no, I'm tired. She never did that, not once. And my dad always, paying for baseball and football and Christmas, anything I wanted. Yeah, if I can emulate my mom and my dad, then it's like I was a successful parent.
And when you become a parent, or even when you get older, you realize the sacrifices your parents made when you were
man.
growing up. Because I was doing comp basketball, then high school basketball, football, lacrosse. My sisters were in dance.
I mean, and you were playing Pee Wee before all that.
Yeah, and I, growing up playing all these sports, and then you look back and you're like, damn. Now I know why my dad always wore the same pair of shoes.
Yeah, seriously.
Literally.
He got every penny worth out of every one of, because that's what was important for him, was to see us doing stuff we enjoyed doing. He didn't care about, oh, well, if you play football, then...
Well, and now, like, we understand the economy.
Yeah.
And right before our peak was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And our poor parents, not that they were literally poor, but just like
They
an
had to
economic
balance this.
crisis
Yeah.
happens, and we're all just like, why the fuck can't I have my Xbox?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was such a piece of shit, and
Yeah.
now I have all of this like respect and gratitude for my parents that
Yeah.
they never even told me
Yep.
Yeah.
why. You know what I mean? Like, I would have bit back so hard if I was a parent.
Yeah, I'd been like, do you know how much this mortgage is?
Literally, I would have been like, do you want to see the bills?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
but
they were just so kind and never let us worry about a thing.
Yeah. you see the sacrifices they made. Once you're later on in life, you look back and be like, I never knew anything. They just carried on as usual, and they sacrificed the things they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just a few years ago, once me and all my siblings were out of the house, my parents got a new bedroom set. New bed frame, nightstands, dresser, TV stand. And my mom's like, yeah, I've never had a new bedroom set.
You
I
guys
was-
have had many though.
I was like, Mom, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
You never have? She's like, no, this is the first one. Like, since we first got married and we got one, and then we were just like piecing stuff together. I'm like, well, I appreciate that, you know?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have one because they wanted to give us everything that we needed and some of the stuff we wanted
Right.
when we were growing up, and that was their priority. So now that's been like a big thing for me. I want to make sure my kids, my family has everything that they need, and if I have to sacrifice,
Happy to
that
do so.
that's fine. I've had these shoes for like 6 years, so
Yeah, I'm at that point now. Kid's only a year old, you know. But yeah, that's looking back. It makes me feel selfish knowing like what my parents went through, and I never knew if they were ever struggling or something. I had no idea about it.
yeah.
I feel like I chronically apologize to my mom. I just have like flashbacks of being so shitty.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm so.
and selfish, but it's about the innocence, right? You don't know. It's like, come on, what?
And the intent was not to, like, backstab my parents
Right.
ever and make them go to their room and cry, which I would have if I was yelling at me like that. But
Yeah.
like, I think that's just paying it forward now that we're adults and old enough to realize how we
Mhm.
treated our parents, or for sure me. Kind of gave me an opportunity to get closer with them, even.
Yeah.
Just being like,
Oh,
hey,
for sure,
I get it now.
for sure.
But, well, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
No,
love
thank you.
guys,
We
and
enjoyed
we're
it.
so grateful that we're all still friends, and we'll have you back.
Oh,
Awesome.
I hope
I
so.
love that.
It'll
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah, we're down.
Let's do it.